how do I put this right? The new gods in their form that we know them, the ones that were created by Kirby, were something that was going to change at the start of Final Crisis, or had already started to change at the start of Final Crisis. So the choice was, when we were working with Jimmy with the countdown to Final Crisis and books like that.
I said, don't blame me.
One of the things that we did is that we felt that the Kirby interpretation of the characters needed a close. You know, not just something that was part of the event, but I wanted to put them all in their own showcase, in their own way. And that's one of the reasons why we created the Death of New God story. It was really the close of that series because we knew we were launching into a new interpretation. The concept was, as they had played with it a little bit during the Seven Soldiers of Victory, is that the new gods are avatars. So because of that, you're not sure who and where they're going to arise in. So there was some confusion about who were going to be the new avatars, not who are the new gods themselves, but who are the people who are going to become the new gods. That's what that was supposed to be alluding to, but I don't think it came across in that fashion.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that. And then in that same vein, you've got, at the end of Final Crisis, Batman going where the Omega are sanctioned, and then Trinity going on at the same time, and we're saying these three characters are really important, and then Superman's taking a break, Batman's taking a break, and Wonder Woman's...
Yeah, I mean, the problem with the weekly series is the Trinity runs in a different pattern and style than both Countdown did and both 52 did. 52 ran an actual timeline for a year.
Right.
Countdown ran going down to a particular book and story in a particular period of time as well. Trinity's sort of a little bit outside of that because we really wanted to showcase those three characters in their own way, and that's what Kurt's been doing in it. But we didn't want to tie our hamper into what were the continuities running at the time. At the end of Trinity, though, there will be clear ramifications of what that does and how it affects the rest of the DCU. Okay, so that's one of the things. You know, because when you're putting together a weekly series, naturally, there's a lot of challenges that come with it, and every time that we think we solve a problem, we create a new one. And it's interesting to hear what you said because we get that a lot. People want to see how that lines up as clearly as it did in 52, which it was never built that way.
Very close, by the way.
Yeah, it's supposed to be fun. You know what I mean? It's supposed to be good fun where you get a chance to see three primary characters in a different light, which is all
They
right.
think I would collect them all, like all the countdowns and all the so
It's
you can
too
read
big.
it from beginning to end like that big.
Yeah, you know what? You know, I would love to see.
I'm cool. Like just big,
I would love to see that
three
book.
like three big hardcovers.
That's the way I'd love to see it. I think
Yeah.
that's the way it should be done.
What
Ultimately.
about the big guy back in
Yeah.
the file?
Right, yeah, right, that's right.
First off, the bills.
And talking except a little choked up right now.
That's the method again.
Hey, you go.
But going back to our talk about Young Justice earlier,
Yep.
myself, my friend here, ask me every panel we go to, when will we see Young Justice trade? And we keep saying, there's nothing in the pipe.
Blame Bob.
Where's Bob Wayne? Vince, you're definitely
Get him
a
on the phone.
But my actual question, do you think we'll ever see that in the volume of Young Justice?
I have, you know what, I'll speak honestly for a second. It's a rare moment, so you might as well enjoy it. I'm really not involved on the trade and collected edition side, especially on material that pre-exists my my starting deck, as Jimmy can attest to.
Yes.
Yeah, you know, I'm still waiting for that Superboy stuff to get collected. I'm just kidding.
I don't have a lot of interest in the Young Justice trade that I did have, and
Yeah.
it's probably not out of demand for it right now. So when if there's a time when Young Justice shows back up again,
Yeah.
Yeah, things change. I mean, sometimes, also, like, where creators get hot, and all of a sudden they start collecting.
Yeah.
I noticed, like, Jeff Johns, like, a lot of old stuff from Jeff's got collected recently.
Yeah,
And,
yeah, it's tracks.
so when that kind of thing happens, then those collections
Yeah.
take place.
Yeah, but I think what happens, I think they did a collection, is that it? They did one and it just... Yeah, but it just never, it wasn't sales enough to support moving on to another collection, basically, or a series. Back then. Yes, sir. Oh, guy, then you next. I don't have an answer for the football question, so I'm just trying to...
Okay, when Green Arrow, when Ollie came back, he replaced Connor, and basically Connor just became like a side character, and I'm afraid that's going to happen. We know that it's going to be a new Batgirl. Cassandra means a lot to some of us. I just want to know, yeah, to me only, and I just want to know that if you do have a plan for this, and also this goes for all the characters that you're gonna revive for final prizes. When you brought back Jason Todd, I loved it, but then it was clear that there wasn't a plan for him.
Actually, there was a plan for him. There's a huge plan for him.
Well, there was a plan to redeem him in
Yep.
Countdown, and then nothing happened.
Well, what happened is that we, okay, let's go through two questions. First one's Cassandra, okay? Cassandra is appearing in one of the Battle for the Cal one-shots, if I'm not mistaken. I think she's in the network, if I'm not mistaken, in that one. You gotta forgive me, everything starts to crash into each other. And she's also gonna be appearing in the Streets of Gotham book, if I'm not mistaken, as well. I think we'll be seeing her in there. But there's also bigger plans for Cassandra down the road. She's a very viable character for us, and we're having some fun with it, okay? Jason Todd always was a plan. He was always going to be in the Countdown books, and Jason Todd is front and center in the DC universe from Battle for the Cal out. He's going to be a major player out there for a while. So, like I said, the goal for us is always to, in some of those characters that can support a series ongoing for an extended period of time, put them out there, give them a chance to get them a chance to shine, and then bring them back when the story really calls for it. And that's what's going to happen with those two. Okay? Right over here. So,
Superman's my book, and I'm kind of, just as well as Jeff and the team over there have been doing on that book, it irks me to some degree with all the retcons that have taken place in recent years from the Superman stories that I came into reading in the 90s with Death and Return of Superman and all that. And it's almost like he's not exactly the same character in the same world they live in.
you know, I think it's funny, your question, his question, a lot of his questions, Young Justice, all circle around the same thing. Seriously, if you listen to it, and maybe a little bit of the age of the audience over here too, what you're all addressing is what I felt and came into in the 90s feels like it's changing right now. Seriously, and that's what it seems like it's about. The reality is, you're absolutely right. Just the same way in the 80s, people said, oh, you changed what I knew from the 60s or from the 70s. Or, things seem to keep on evolving. We constantly move the story just a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. Things like Superman is one that constantly keeps on getting slight updates as we go on.
Like Galactica,
Yeah.
right? In a way, I mean, old and
Green
new.
Lantern and all that. But what we're trying to do, and we really have identified this concept of the generations of DC, and we're entering what is basically a new generation of DC's heroes, a new interpretation, a new direction. It's not that we forego everything, and what we're really trying to do is build on everything that existed before, but some of the things you're asking, or some things you're talking about, are just slight changes to the left or right. It's not something that breaks or changes the character completely. We don't want to do the complete reboot anymore. We're just doing little fixes along the way. Just the same way Marvel would say Iron Man was in Afghanistan and not Vietnam. You got to make these things as you go ahead because it gives you potential for future story down the road.
And tone changes because, I mean, even I'm writing a character, Hex, that in the 70s had his own title forever, and it's the same character, but I have to update what I know about the world and about Indians and all that, so things are written a little differently, but it's still the same core character.
Yeah.
So you just have to update them for new audiences. And I think, personally, comic readers, you get older, you get smarter, and you realize that I've read this a million times before, so you have to the writers have to keep coming up with new stuff,
If you want to speak truthfully about it, when you look at it, in the 70s, when they used to update the characters a lot, what happened was that a lot of people would read for a few years, then move on. Wouldn't read comics anymore. The new readers would come in, and if they made a change, they wouldn't know what the reference points were. But now we have a very, very learned audience. We have audience, this is for our Sunday conversation panel, but I'll do it here. How long have you guys been reading? How many people have been reading 1 year? Just hold your hands up if you're reading 1 year or more. 1 year or more. Okay? 5 years or more. 10 years or more. 15 years or more. 20 years or more. Right? 25 years or more. 30 years or more. 35 years or more. 40 years. Okay? Seriously, 45. Keep going. 45? Do I hear 50?
Wait a minute, I'm only 49.
But I'm saying,
He's an early
but
reader.
you see what I mean? We have people staying with us. So guess what happens in 30 years? We're going to have to revisit a story.
A lot of the changes or tweaks that have been made seem like reintroduction of old ideas.
But the concept, if they're old ideas presented in a new light. It's
Yeah, they
different.
kind of work, so they keep
Yeah,
rebooting
this-
it in a weird way.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of stuff, especially for things like the Legion of Superheroes. Things like Legion of Superheroes is important to us, and I have to say, Legion Superheroes always work best